Hey folks, this is Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. All right, today we've got a lot of stuff we need to do. We need to wrap up a lot of the little midship stuff that just needs to be installed. We need to put together and paint the ship's boats and figure out how to mount them without actually rigging them. There's no rigging or rigging instructions in the kit, and because I said we're building it out of the box, we're not gonna do that. So we need to kind of figure out how to make things work. I did a little modifying to make that happen. You'll see that. We need to put the forward or midship kind of like shields along the edge of the deck in. We need to paint all that up. Propellers need to go on. The little protectors above the side of the propellers, port and starboard, need to go on. And then the ship's radar and mast need to be assembled and painted up. It's fragile, but I didn't find it very frustrating. I did it all in one sitting. I just kind of had to use my head and take my time, right, and have CA glue and accelerator and you know, kind of know what you're doing a little bit. And then that's it. So it's a lot of stuff in this episode. Hopefully you'll find it helpful. And then I'm hoping that we have one more episode and we're done, because really at this point I believe all that is left of the kit parts is to paint up and install the main armaments, the main 5-inch guns. There's 5 of them. And then we need to put a few things on the bow, and then we need to put all the railing around the ship. That actually is probably going to be the most difficult thing around the hull. So yeah, that's it. Thank you to everyone who's liked and subscribed. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who contributes to us on Patreon. We're super grateful to you. And thank you to everyone who's made a purchase recently at themidwestmodelshop.com, where we sell lots of 3D printed parts to help make your model building experience go better, right? And be less headache and still have really high detail. After Fletcher, one more episode, we're going back to CV6, the Enterprise 1/200 scale. It's right there. It's out of the shop, but yeah, I'm spooling up that process here and everything we're going to do to get going right where we left off before the move. All right, that's it. Let's get into the build. All right, ladies and gentlemen, back in action. So I'm starting to do some of the little filling in business. You can see I got a couple of chocks here that I put in. I forgot to do that earlier. There's a little stand right here that's installed. And then moving up to the front, this is a little bit more important. We've installed this little photo etch rack right here that's for the life rafts. And 2 things I wanted to point out. One, the instructions are not very good about placement. There's a left and a right. Make sure you get that straight. I placed the longer diagonal triangle aft, and then utilizing the hull plating here, the aft end of the hull plane is where I put that tip. That was my reference point that I used for both sides. So the next thing that I wanted to point out, and it has to do with this, you're going to put a life raft here and also on here. I've got them, I'm starting to paint them up right. And they're pretty big and they're going to stick on there and they're going to poke out a little bit. But what about railing? The instructions have you put this on, install your life raft now. And on the very last page of the instructions, they then have you install the railing, the exterior railing. So you're going to use piece B1. They're all generic big photo etch. But here's the thing. If I put it where it goes, it butts right up against this rack. And if I have already installed my life raft, you're going to have problems. It's not going to want to work. So what I'm going to do is wait. I'm going to leave this life raft I could put on, but this one I'm going to leave off until after I've installed my railing. And this is just some default railing. So you have another issue. So we have these little, you know, our little chocks here and stuff, and that's nice. But because this railing's generic, basically what I've realized is they all pretty much work out till you get right to here, these two. See how the post is right in alignment? So I want to wait and make sure that I've, 1, try and put these in the correct spot marked by the kit, and 2, we're going to have to sort out kind of like where does this go left, right, wise, to get it correct before we commit. And then it will lay on top of this photo etch. It goes all the outside. Then I'll attach our life draft afterwards. This one's recessed. Like I said, it can be put in there earlier. So I wanted to point that out. That's kind of a really big deal. And then we're going to work on some of our little things, and we'll install them next. All right, so a couple of things I want to see before we move on. Right down there, see that little brass piece? That's the top to a valve, I think, that you operate. And then if we flip it over to the port side, you've got two more right here that I wanted to show you before they disappear. Then we're going to go ahead and install a few items, right? So let's see here. If I turn this like so, oh man, I wasn't thinking this through. I'm going to demonstrate this. Right here, there's a little reel that I've got painted up that gets installed. The instructions want you to install it very early on before you put down any of the deck fittings, any of the boat houses or anything like that. I don't know that that's the best idea given how tight it is, because if you have a problem, I wouldn't want this little reel to be the issue. All right, so that dropped in. I do want to point out, man, is it little. Every one of these, see it down in there? Every one of these little items, the holes, I had to ream them out prior to installation. Now we've got another big reel right here, and this is it. Now I haven't test fitted this one to see if it will work, because I wasn't able to ream the holes out for it. My plan was just to cut off the nubs and set it in position. I think that's what we may have to do here. I don't think it's going to drop all the way down, at least not in the front. So let me trim. We're going to trim these off. The back ones, they appear to be going in. So I guess another item that I would do once the deck is painted up is go back and run a drill through all of these little holes and make sure that they work right. Okay, so we have that reel in position, and that looks good. Moving along. I do have this little rack right here that's been installed, and I have to pull them out. I started painting the little depth charges that go on there. Moving up here though to this spot, we've got a couple of holes, and that is for the little ship winch that I've assembled and put together. The thing you got to watch out here though for is that it has to fit, this winch wheel has to fit underneath the railing that we've already installed. And if you put the winch in first and then you go install the railing, it's going to be difficult, basically. So this is kind of just a tricky, let's just use our heads and work slowly through this. Be a little bit of stretching here. Trying to figure out, oh boy. I guess what I could do, oh, is it going to work? There we go. All right, so I bent the rail a little bit. I could have cut off the bottom nubs of the winch and just slid it into position over the holes. That would have worked as well, I think, right? Okay, those are the big items. Now, let's see. Let's glue this thing on real quick. That little depth charge. All right, so this one's going to be a little bit trickier because, well, it's going to be fine. So I painted it up on the sprue, and there's two, and the little one faces out, and you can see I've got some area right there that needs to be touched up, and that's fine. So we're going to apply a little bit of CA glue to the top here very carefully, because that's photo etch. And we'll leave that like so, and I think we'll be okay. And then we'll come back and we'll touch up that leading edge with some paint. Okay. Now, yeah. We have this situation with the lifeboats and davits. I have the lifeboats, and I have the davits painted up. Let's talk about the lifeboats real quick. All right, first of all, I'll stop calling them lifeboats and refer to them as the ship boats, as the whale boats. I just painted them up in gray. I hand brushed this on, which using AK paints, which gave it kind of a semi-gloss appearance, which I think is okay. I wanted to leave the prop brass just because I think it looks cool, although it probably was painted. So here's the top detail. Yeah, and there's the fit. Yep, that's it. I don't have the solution ready at the moment, but I've been working on. Actually, I started on it months ago. I want to replace this drop-in piece. There's nothing, generally speaking, wrong with the boat too much, but yeah. And the other one is the same. So here's the issue, though. Let's address this or try to figure it out. In my demo that I did, let's see. I think I turned the boat sideways and I set it on top of this ledge right here, and I turned it and I glued the aft end on top of the deck house right here. At least I tried to. It's supposed to sit like this, parallel to the direction of the ship. So the bow can sit up here, but what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to have this big davit in the back, which we've got. And again, I pre-drilled out these holes, so we'll just set the davit in here for fun. And then this thing would go like this. And there's supposed to be some rigging that connects to the davit that holds the boat up, and a little stand, a stanchion, we'll call it, that leans off of the davit and pushes up against the side of the boat to kind of help hold it in position, stabilize it. So you can see this mess I'm making right here, right? Here's what I think I'm going to do. I want to try and make it go this way. So ideally, we would glue it to this stanchion, right? And let it sit on this ledge right here. And then the forward stanchion, let's see here. It just kind of gets stowed on here like this, right? And you go like that with it, and you're good to go. So we don't have any rigging. So I have to figure out how am I going to attach this, keep it stable, and get the boat attached to it in the right spot. So let me think about that for a minute. Okay, well, we're going to try something. I don't know if it's going to work, but so first of all, take a look at our boat, and you can see I've got a pin installed in it, a little piece of 0.033 millimeter wire, and I'm scratching up my boat. I've drilled a corresponding hole right here in the deck. We're going to drop the boat onto that. It's positioning the boat a little bit further forward than I would like, but we're going to start with that. We're going to use some CA glue, and so as you can see, if I just drop it, it doesn't fall all the way down. So if we use some CA glue, I'm hoping it's going to reinforce it enough to hold it up. And then I say then, we're not going to do then. We're going to start off with placing this davit into position back here. I'm going to glue it in. We're going to let it set up, and I want the boat to touch the back, this davit in the back, so we can put some glue there to try and support it from the back as well. I thought about drilling a hole through the davit into the boat and running a little tiny piece of wire through there, which would mimic the real thing. There's a little, mechanism that goes there and touches. And maybe down the road I'll do something like that, or maybe I'll end up having to do that here anyway. But so we're gonna that's the plan, right? I'm wiggling all over here. So we're gonna start off with a healthy dollop of glue, and we're gonna put this dab in position, and we're gonna have to do some YouTube TV magic here. I want this dried up. I want it pointing in. I want it plumb. Let's see here. Yeah. I know you guys are missing the shot. I want it plumb, and I want it cured before we start monkeying around with trying to put the boat in a position. So yeah, that looks reasonable. So let's just let that set up for now. All right, I don't know how this is going to work out on camera, but we're going to try. So this davit's glued in, and it's as robust as it's going to be. I pulled my pin out and tried to move it forward further because I wanted the boat to connect to the davit. It was touching it basically on the back right here where the rudder's at, and it should be slightly forward. So what we're going to do is glop a bunch of CA glue onto the boat. Hopefully drop my pin in there. And I'm going to hold it like this. And this makes it look like I'm still touching the davit a little forward or aft of where I want, but whatever. We're just going to hold it here for a minute and hope that it sets up. And what I probably should have done is made some sort of box or stand for this thing to attach to so that it doesn't have anywhere to go. I'm going to go back to the CA glue. I'm going to put a dollop right here. We're going to bring the davit into contact. Yeah. And we're going to let it touch. We're going to let the glue... Man, I'm really sorry if that was out of focus. Yeah. So I put some CA glue right here. It looks like if we can make a little bridge of CA glue on that davit, and there is contact there. I could see it. I think we'll be all right. That'll hold up in the spot that we want. That looks pretty good, right? And it's parallel to the direction of the ship. So we're going to say that's okay for right now. And then, see, my other davit needs to face forward, or sorry, straight aft like this. And we'll turn it kind of in so that it is centered over the top of the boat as if it was rigged. Let's get a little bit of our glue going here. I may have enlarged the hole for this one a little too much, and then again, there's just this tiny little area that goes into the deck. I'm going to turn it. There we go. So it's centered up with the center of the boat. And, oh, where's my tweezers? I want to tip it back a little bit. I'm trying to get it to go up and down and be parallel to like this bulkhead right here, right? I think that looks pretty good. The camera's battery's dying, so let me get this settled up and then we'll take another look at it. All right, we are back several moons later, but yeah, let's take a look at it. So this is the starboard side. It went in pretty well. The only issue I kind of had was a little bit of sagging here and had to use some accelerator for the CA glue to get this to kind of hold its position and be right. I went ahead and threw the life raft on right here. It's not, I guess it could have been centered a little better, but whatever. It's going to be fine. I think this looks good. Now, I've left it gray. Same gray as up, on the rest of the camouflage. It does have a pattern on it in the instructions, but I think we're going to omit the pattern just because we want it to. I don't know that it had it on there at all in real life, I guess is what I'm getting at. I guess I should look at some reference photos. So anyway, what I like, though, I'm going to do this without wrecking anything, they're kind of parallel to the ship versus being sat up on the edge of things, kind of crooked, and it looks the part better, right? I think that is good. So when we back up, kind of all the parts are there in the ship. So the next thing I want to do, whoops, sorry for the bumpy bumps. We have our little shields here that go into position like so. And what I'm going to do is, they've already been primed with the light gray color. I'm going to go ahead and we'll glue these into position, and then I'll come back with a hand brush and we'll just kind of bring up the darker colors here with the camouflage pattern to match. Yeah, you should mask them off and airbrush them to make it look right and not have funny lines. I'm ready to kind of get this thing wrapped up at that point. So we're gonna do that, and then maybe the radar here, we need to figure that out, right? I'm not sure. So let's get this glued into position. All right. So we'll do like that. And I did a tiny little trim right here so that this would fit up against this bulkhead, and the rest of this will just sit nicely along the edge here. Tamiya thin glue, and we'll let that set up on both sides so we could do a little bit of painting, right? And get this camouflage pattern that rolls on and up to match what else we have going on there. All right, so we're back. I've done a little bit of painting here, and man, through the camera you just can't tell, right? Like, here it is. It's just all mushing together like camouflage, like it's supposed to be, right? I guess that is the idea here. And then here is the other one. So let's go ahead now and swing ourselves all the way back over here to the rear end of the ship, because it's been a minute. We have these little guards. I feel like there's been enough time that these get installed. There are 2 holes in your hull here, and there's 2 little pegs. These things, despite maybe not being the greatest, I think this is one for the other side, they're both numbered the same. They don't fit so bad. You go in like this, we'll put a little glue on them, and you're set. The only comment I have is these top edges here, right? They're tapered. The middle one wasn't so tapered, is the long and short of it, and so I had to do a little filing and cleaning up to make that work out the way that it needs to. So we'll just put a little CA glue here on all of our contacting surfaces. And when I said CA glue, I meant Tamiya cement in the holes. Whoop. Like that, right? And then we'll go ahead and get it painted up. We'll do both sides. All right, and now that we're doing that, we're back here on the rear end of the ship. We have the kit propellers. These need to be touched up. I've just got my initial coat of brass. It's really gold on here, and I think I talked about them a while ago. They spin outboard and they go like that. And those are the kit supplied, your typical trumpeter propellers. And I have, if those of you, if you don't know already, I 3D printed, I redesigned, I based it off of the real thing, USS Kid and drawings. I went ahead and made more accurate scale ones. Accurate scale, right shape, and pitch that you can buy instead at our website, midwestmodelshop.com. I think these are like $5, and you know, I think that they look the part better, right? But anyway, we'll put the kit ones on. All right, real quick. Sorry, I got interrupted there. I wanted to show this profile too because I think that this 3D printed ones look a lot better. I mean, that looks like a ship's propeller. That's right. And you take it off, and if you put on, let's see, compare it to the trumpeter one. Yeah. But hey, you know, you get what they. I mean, they provided you with propellers, and it's hard to do this. I don't know that you can injection mold the proper pitch to make it look right. It's easier to 3D print, but anyway, yeah. So let's glue on the right parts now. I know I'm repeating myself. We'll paint this up, and we'll move on to the next big thing. All right, it's time to move on to our mass. So this piece, I want to preface by saying I have already cleaned it up and made sure it's nice and smooth, and I also dropped it in to where it mounts on the ship behind the bridge to make sure that it fits, which is something you should do too. Down here, this little guy, as soon as I cut it loose and went to clean it up a little bit, snapped in half on me, just effortlessly. So I've gone ahead and tried to glue it back together. I'm hoping that it holds up and survives long enough so that we can glue it onto the mast where it needs to go. There's this little piece that was kind of pre-painted. I gotta get out of this paint mess here, I'm sorry. And then we've got these little parts. And there's photo etch, but we haven't put the photo etch together yet and pulled it out. So let's go ahead and start as best as we can here assembling some of these things. We'll do this little guy first. Right down here. This faces aft into the mast. This will get a piece of photo etch attached to the back, but in the meantime we'll put a little glue here and put this in a position. I do not know how this is all going to work out in terms of securing to the main mast because, you know, this thing is a little P and it's going to have a piece of photo etch, and then this tiny little flat spot back here is where it attaches to the mast at the narrowest point at the top. Seems like a big heavy weight on a small little point, but we'll find out, right? Let's see here. This piece is the one that I am worried about, so we'll let that dry. There's, see the bumps here and here on the side, they go up, and this is supposed to attach right here on the back of the mast. There's a flat spot right there that it's supposed to glue to. That little flat spot. So, yeah. We'll flip this over. So the flat spot is up, the front of the mast is down. We'll put our little piece of glue right there. And we're going to do this. And I'm going to have to hold it at the right angle. And then try and make sure that it's straight. Ooh, and it tipped. Because there's a flat top. I don't know if you can see that, how it's flat. You want that going straight up and down. So what I may end up doing here, once this dries, is reinforcing it a little bit with some CA glue, just to build up a little bit of body here to keep things in the right spot. So let's get that dried up here for a minute. Alright, that glue's still wet, but it's, you know, it's hanging on alright, I guess. We're doing some alright. So we'll apply a little here. This is now on the front. And then we'll drop this guy into place. And you want these little antenna ends to run up and down. They may not even be antenna ends. These may be little supports to the rigging. We're not rigging this model because Trumpeter doesn't have any instructions on it. I have reference material for rigging in my books and stuff, and we will, on the next one when I get to it, we'll rig it all up. But we're going to put this here and let that dry. We need to let all of this set up, and then can I even see it? See this tiny little spot right there? That is where this guy is supposed to go, like that. And man, I want all this set up first before we monkey with that, right? So we'll probably pull out some photo etch next here. All right, I went ahead and just bent up because it was tiny with my fingers and put this little antenna on there, and that's no problem. Then you've got this piece, what are we calling it here? B27, and it goes on the very top of the mast. On top of the mast sits this entire radar array, which is poorly explained in terms of how you should fold it. In fact, they almost just completely block it. It just says bend. So we're going to do a little speculating here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the engraved surfaces facing me, and we'll bend away. We'll go like this. And what ends up happening is I know that it sits here on top of this piece. We're going to have to do some CA gluing to get it to connect. What I'm not clear about is if there's another bend or bevel there. So very carefully bend over this part, and we'll flip up these parts. And I think, looks like you want to bend them down and up to kind of meet each other. There's a bend in this bottom piece. I tip that up a little bit. Then they all kind of meet. But then I also feel like this is going to have my antenna array, like if I set it down like that, right, it's leaning back. Now we want it to lean forward to be straight. So let me take another look at this here. All right, I've got it figured out. I don't know if my photo etch is going to break though. This whole thing is supposed to fold up like that, and then this triangle, this out of the way, is supposed to come like that. Then these all come down and meet. Does that make sense? I hope. That's kind of the, I'll turn it here at a 90 like that. That's what they're looking at. That's what the instructions are indicating. And then you got to bend this down so that it meets on that tip there. That is Trumpeter's intention. So let me dial in this bending here and get a little glue on it. Okay, so yeah, I tried to, maybe it didn't stick, this top bent piece to our triangle, and then the bottom ones, they don't really go to anything. They don't reach. But the instructions imply that they should bend up kind of like you see right here. So that's what I'm going with. Yeah, wonderful. All right, so that whole array is supposed to sit on top of this piece, which I think the right move is going to be to glue this onto the mast first, and then we can go ahead and attach the brass to it when everything's kind of stabilized, right? So we'll get some glue up here. This thing goes out like at a 90-degree angle to the left. And yeah, we'll keep it straight and we'll let it set up nicely before we bother with the photo etch on top. Alright, while this all is setting up, I'm going to begin to broach the issue. I'm going to use gravity. I'm going to put a little glue right here. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and attempt to put this guy into position. And I'm going to have to hold it very carefully and let it balance so that till it secures itself to the right angle. Alright, that seems to have gone fairly well, and I'm trying to decide what to do next and have settled on installing this forward ladder. Now, the instructions say that it just kind of drops on and fits over these three things. But when you do that, it ends up sitting flush up against the mast, which I don't think is actually correct. I think it's supposed to be off a little bit. And so I think it's supposed to be up against these three stanchions basically that are holding it into position here. And so what I'm going to do is just like you saw there, I've dropped it on to those little three bumps. I'm going to put a little CA glue on either side, and then before the glue sets up, I'm going to bring the ladder forward, and I might just do it by flipping the ladder over, or flipping this whole thing over like this, and we'll push this ladder off of the, whoop, that didn't work. I want to push it off of the little spots. There we go. That's better. I want to leave, see there's a little gap? That's what I'm trying to do. I don't mind that this is flaring out a little under control at the bottom there. That's going to end up getting probably attached to the base of the top deck or the roof of the bridge. But this should work out. Yeah. That'll work out. That's going to be okay. That's what we're going to do with it. We're going to leave it like that. And yeah, once you get it straight like that, I think it looks pretty good. So then the next ladder actually connects right off the top of here and drops down and runs down and ends up landing on this bottom cross piece right here. So let's get it cut out and figure that step out. Okay, for installing the next ladder, and I realize I'm kind of showing you this upside down, and that's fine. It is actually very simple. So we'll put a little CA glue along the top here, and we'll put a little CA glue right here corresponding. Use your tweezers, be careful. And just set it in a position and let it go. That's all we're going to do. All right. So it ends up looking like that. I'm not perfectly parallel, but it's going to be okay. So, and then this whole thing, can you even see it from there? I know we're a little back. Let's drop it down. Goes into position like that. So this radar, I really want to have it attached up here before we go to paint, and the other parts too. So I do have this block of wood that I use for my regular wooden ships. And it's nice because all it is it's a block of wood that's pretty big with some holes in it. And if you need to hold something round upright, this will do it. I'm a little hesitant to secure everything in a position just quite yet, but here's what I am going to do. I'm going to get CA ready. I got my CA glue. I'm going to grab my my accelerator also, because sometimes you get things into position the way you want and the glue is just not setting up. And then when things are not in the right place and you absolutely don't want anything drying right now, that is when the glue will set up instantly for you and not work correctly, and you get irritated. So we'll put that up there. All right, I'm going to hold it. Oh boy, oh boy. Everyone here gets the idea. You're going to have to hold it in position and get it set up the way that you want before the glue sets up. So let me work on wrapping that up. All right, this is just sitting in here. I just dropped it in a position. Managed to get set up. I think what I would do, those of you building the ship will notice that you should put a pin in the top of that plastic piece, B29, B5, sorry, B5. Put a pin in the top that's close to the diameter of the hole for this radar dome, and it'll slide on there and hold into position better, and you'll have less trouble than I did trying to get it all straight and worked out. And it's not perfect, but it's good enough, and I'm not going to mess with it anymore. I think that's what we're looking for. So now we've got some really tiny details that can be added, and what I'm going to do is leave the mast on the ship at this point because it's holding it upright at a nice angle. I don't have to worry about moving it, and we can work on those little tiny pieces. We're going to start by applying a very small amount, but thick, clump of CA glue right here. And I've prepped the photo etch piece. Have it sit like that. This is a little accelerator. That worked because I glued the brush to, oh geez. There you go. I glued the brush on, look at that. And we bent our piece here that I told you was broke earlier. It's all right, it'll go back. I'm showing you all this because it's tricky, and if I'm having problems, you'll have problems. But that's one end. Let's go ahead and get it sorted out to the other side. Okay, here we go. Everything is finally installed. Slow and steady wins the race. Once it's all kind of set up and cured, it looks pretty good. It's reasonably strong, and yeah, you know, it does the thing. So what I'm going to do now is cake this out very carefully, hit it with the airbrush and get some color on it. We'll come back, we'll install it, and then we'll take a final look at the ship with all of our progress we've made this week. Well, before we get too carried away with our last things, I wanted to point out there is a photo etch ladder right here. This is our aft funnel that I had not installed yet, so we went ahead and put that in. And then there's another one on the back side of the bridge. It's located right there. This is it. We went ahead and installed it, and next to it is where we drop down the mast that we've been working on, which is all painted up. So let's go ahead and do that. All I'm going to do is I applied a little bit of glue to the very base. I'm going to drop it down in. And it does fit a little bit snug now that we've got a layer of paint on it. So just seat it in the bottom there. I just want to double check that we're mostly perpendicular to forward with our stuff on top here, and we're set. That's it. All right, and that's what it looks like. Let's take a look at the ship. Okay, here's the ship so far, and basically it looks really close to finished, right? But obviously we're missing our guns. We have some things up on the bow that need to happen, and we have all the railing that runs all along the outside of the ship that needs to be installed also. And then once the railing's in, we can install our life rafts that go there. So we end up with 3. I forgot to mention, so I saw this in the instructions, you're supposed to have one right here also, which I installed kind of after the fact once I dropped everything in. And then we'll have our 3rd one on the rack. So 6 total on the whole ship. But the big deal here is our mast with our radar. And I think as you can see, it turned out pretty good. Looks sharp. You know, out of the box, now that it's got paint on it and it's up there, it looks good. I'm pretty impressed with it, actually, especially when you take the whole ship into consideration. So yeah, we've gone ahead and, like I said, we've got all of our little things installed that we kind of worked on midship here this time that all add up to making it look pretty cool. And the big thing being the radar mast being installed, and yeah, that's kind of it. So I think we're going to call it quits for right now. And the next one we come back, I hope we can finish it up. All right, folks, we'll see you next time.